This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, welcome back everyone. So in this segment, we'll look into the requirements elicitation techniques. We have come across this word earlier also, and we just touched upon it before, but now we'll try to see what are the different techniques of requirements elicitation that would be used by a business analyst. And again, we'll at the end of the video, we'll also see which of these is the most effective ones, which is the most often used, and are there any other techniques which can be used, and further points like that. First of all, what is this requirements elicitation? So, whenever you capture the requirements, when you're trying to understand requirements, identifying the key pain points, and then documenting the needs and expectations of the stakeholders, that particular process would be referred to as the requirements elicitation. And this is one of the most basic, or the fundamental pillar of success for your project, because this is where the precise gathering of the requirements takes place. And if this gathering of requirements, which is a very crucial step, if this is really done well, then it lays the proper foundation for the right product to be delivered at the end of the project. Okay, so this is a very important step of understanding the requirements and then documenting it in a precise manner so that you can get the approval and then the development can start. Okay, so let's look at the different techniques which are there first of all, and then we'll see how it works. The very first technique is called as interview technique. So here what happens is, as a business analyst, you would be setting up a sort of a meeting with either a single stakeholder, if only one stakeholder's inputs are enough for discussing the requirement, a specific requirement, or if again a group of them are required, then you create a group invite and then you discuss with them about this particular set of questions that you have, and they'll respond to it. Okay, so that would be referred to as the interview technique. Then you have something called as document analysis. So here what happens is, let's take an example. So let's say that again, going back to our example of food delivery app. So let's say that a food delivery app is already out in the market of your client, and now they want to enhance it by adding a new payment method. Okay, let's assume that earlier they had uh, just a couple of payment options which they provided to the customer in their app. Maybe they just added credit card and cash and delivery, and now they want to add the internet banking as an option, as an additional payment option to the app. Okay, so in this case, uh, the scenario is such that the app is already fully functional with a set of payment options already available. And now you are part of this project, which is about enhancing the app by adding few other features along with it. One is to add this new additional payment option. Okay, so now do you have to reinvent the wheel by discussing the stakeholders, the basics of payment options to be provided, and then come to the option of internet banking to be added and all that things? And do you have to really expect the stakeholders to spend considerable amount of time to discuss these payment options right from the basics? Not exactly. So here, what can instead happen is that when this initially the app was fully developed, okay, then there might have been a business analyst who would have created the documentation for it, and that documentation would have already had some information on what payment methods are already getting added. If you can lay your hands on that particular document, if you have access to that, then you can see whatever initial discussion would have happened, and that gives you the basic information, and on top of it you build your additional information about internet banking, right? So here the existing documentation will help you to understand the current scenario of the requirements which have been gathered, And on top of it, you can only spend the time more effectively by talking only about the additional points that you need to capture, right? So this comes under your document analysis. It could be existing documentation like some user stories or a business requirement document, or sometimes it could be some training manual or user guides which were created earlier for a particular product for which you're going to enhance. It could be any such sort of document. If there is something which can provide you information so that you are clear with the basic understanding, and then on top of it whatever additional delta questions are there, only that you can ask and get the details sorted out, thereby effectively using the time of stakeholders. So that method is referred to as document analysis. Okay, so that is also an effective way for a business analyst to understand the requirements. The third one is the workshops or the brainstorming. So both workshops and brainstorming happen in a similar setup. Like you have a meeting room, you have the set of stakeholders with you, and you facilitate the meeting. Okay, that would be referred to as a workshop. What's the difference between workshop and brainstorming is in brainstorming, you may be actually working along with the stakeholders to define the requirements because you have come up with a question for which the stakeholders might not have thought of before, so they don't have the information, and now you work along with them and um, share your opinion, and they share their opinions. You put forth all the pros and cons of different things available, and then finalize something. So that would be brainstorming. Whereas workshop is something wherein the requirements are already there. You are digging deep into the existing requirements and getting more and more information sorted out. Okay, so that would be the workshop or brainstorming. And then you have something called as prototyping. Okay, so it's better to spend more time on it because I'll actually uh, let you know about prototypes and wireframes, what is low fidelity, high fidelity, what may be a sample tool and all. So we'll spend some time on this in the very next segment. Okay, so let's put it on hold for now. Prototyping, we'll just put it on hold. I'll explain with examples in the next video. But this is also a very crucial requirement elicitation technique for a business analyst. Okay, and after prototyping, whatever you see, these three, which is focus group discussions, surveys or questionnaire, and observation, these are more relevant for the stakeholders because these could be used by them even before approaching any IT team for project delivery. For example, um, maybe in this food delivery app itself, maybe the stakeholders want to know what are the user preferences. Okay, so the business team over there will have a closed group discussion among their key stakeholders itself, and they'll come up with what could be really working better, how we should define this particular mobile app to work, and which customer segments to focus on, and which markets to really focus on, or what type of restaurants we should add in the journey, etc., etc. So that sort of focus group discussions may happen even before the project is assigned to any IT team to work upon. Similarly, surveys and questionnaires, it could be like the business team identifies a set of end users and conducts some surveys, shares a list of questions with them and gets their responses, which gives them a structured feedback. And based on that structured feedback, they come up with a plan. Okay, based on the user preferences that we could identify, this is what really works. Maybe this is how we need to really chalk out the entire plan. And observation technique is nothing but your actual end users. Again, there is a passive observation, active observation, things like that. So here, what happens is uh, there is an end user. Maybe I am trying to come up with a competitive food delivery app, while there is already a food delivery app which is being used in the market. So I sit along with a actual user of that competitor's food delivery app and see how this customer is making the selection, making the payment, tracking the journey on the competitor's app. And based on that, I make some observations. I find that, okay, this is the screen where the customer is spending more time. So in my app, I need to make sure that this becomes more intuitive enough so that the customer can clear and go to the next screen within a very short span of time. So now this is something which I'm doing by observing the actual user in action. And this is a passive one. Whereas in active one, what happens is I observe the end user. In between the action, I might interrupt and I might ask some questions and get the feedback and then make notes of it and then use it accordingly to come up with a better product. So as I said, again, this is something which the business team would have already done directly or by hiring a team to do that on their behalf, and would have understood what exactly needs to be done to make their product better. And after having done this due analysis and concluded on some points, then they come to you, to the IT project, for the delivery of whatever they have decided. So that's the reason the observation, service and question and focus group discussions are something which mostly happens at the business side, whereas the first four are something which happens at the BA, business analyst side. Okay. And having said this, is this an exhaustive list? Not necessarily. Sometimes you might come up with something totally new, but which is really effective in capturing the information that you need. For example, there is a technique called as storyboarding. So you can search for it and get more information. It's not that impactful, or it could be a little time consuming to capture information, but maybe in certain specific projects that might be a better way of requirement elicitation. Similarly, there could be some other techniques like making use of use cases, okay, and coming up with some user personas, and then deriving the requirements out of it. What do I mean by user personas? Again, if I have to go back to the food delivery app, who are the typical users of a food delivery app? Maybe one typical type of user could be a teenager staying in a hostel in their university. So this person cannot cook, so keeps ordering on a daily basis using the food delivery app. This could be one type of customer segment. The second segment could be a busy professional who works from 9 in the morning till around 7 or 8 in the evening, so doesn't have enough time to cook. So rather depends on these food delivery apps. The preferences, the sort of choices, or the type of restaurant selected by this second segment would be totally different from the first one. The first one may focus on more economical stuff, while the second one may be more focused on healthy stuff. It could be, and the third segment could be the senior citizens. Okay, now what is happening here is uh, there are three user personas created. Now, using those user personas, you try to identify the preferences, the amount of the cost that they can bear, and the type of preference and the type of choices that they'll make in selecting a particular menu item, etc., etc. And that will help to make the app more conducive or more easy to use for that specific customer segment. So that sort of thing can be done using the user personas approach or use case. So these all are like additional or different requirement elicitation techniques which can be used for your proper understanding of what should be part of this particular uh, software deliverables. Okay, so you don't have to stick to anything like that. Whenever you find anything better, anything working much in a much more easier fashion, then go for it. As long as you have the buy-in from the stakeholders and your project manager, whatever you suggest which can really add value or make things better for everyone, then no one will have any objection to it. So you can follow that. Okay. Within the given techniques, which one works the best? Um, Most of the times it will be your workshops. Okay, workshop is nothing but you set up a meeting invite, you discuss with the stakeholders, that in that way you have the face-to-face interaction. Okay, and even when you're suggesting something, you can clearly understand at that point of time itself, is this suggestion really getting the required nod from them or not, or are they not really comfortable doing it? Sometimes your suggestions may be really good, but they may not accept because it could be causing a dent in their pocket, means it could be a little expensive. So just by discussing in a direct interaction, these things can be really understood, and based on that, you can come up with a better understanding of the requirements to be documented. Okay, so this is one thing. Of course, when you conduct workshops and all, there will be whichever technique you use, there are some sort of pitfalls and all. We will discuss down the course about how to avoid those things and all. Okay, um, I think prototyping is still left. We will capture it in the next segment itself. We will spend the entire, 10 to 15 minutes in the next segment on prototyping itself, because it's a very interesting and very useful and very effective way of requirement elicitation technique in the type of projects where there is a user interface involved. So let's stop here. Thanks everyone.